The German government will defend its own climate policies in court in a landmark case, which is the first of its kind in the country. 3 German families have filed legal actions against their government over climate change. The group, made up of organic farmers, claim they've been directly affected by changing weather patterns. And they put the blame on the German state's failure to implement climate targets. With the backing of Greenpeace, the organic farmers' case will come before the Berlin Administrative Court today. Last month, the Chancellor, Angela Merkel, announced a €50 billion environment package. But critics have argued this arrived too little too late. Well, our correspondent Jessica Saltz is outside the courthouse in Berlin for us as that hearing gets underway. Morning to you, Jessica. Clearly crowded full of protesters where you are. What are the accusations being made by the people towards the government?
Yes, Rosie, well, I'm here outside the courthouse with perhaps a very physical, symbolic representation of the farming community here. Tractors have actually shut down the road outside of the courthouse, and there's a peaceful demonstration going on there behind me in solidarity with the farmers as this very landmark court hearing begins today. The German government stands accused of failing to stick to its climate targets, most notably failing to stick to its targets to drastically cut CO2 emissions. And Greenpeace and the farmers who are plaintiffs here today say that this is neglect and that this has allowed for the effects of climate change to take place, effects which these farmers have felt very drastically over the last 2 years alone. These farmers coming to court today have seen dramatic floods in 2017 and then drought in 2018. Earlier I spoke to Lisa Goldner, who is a Greenpeace climate change expert, and she told me why the German government still has a long way to go to meet its targets.
Well, since 2007, the German government has repeatedly said that they want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% until the year 2020. And there's a lot of measures that the government could still take to achieve that target. And the most obvious one is to shut down coal power plants, because they're still one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases in Germany.
So we've heard there from Greenpeace that coal, Germany's reliance on coal, is one of the main areas with which they would like to see Germany cut emissions by saying goodbye to coal. This, of course, also one of the main targets of climate change protests that we've seen in Germany over recent months.
What can we expect from the court proceedings, Jessica? And also, what might the implications of this case be?
This is a very unusual, very unprecedented case, Rosie, although a Greenpeace lawyer has said that they could be expecting a verdict on this as early as this afternoon. But let's wait and see. Of course, this is, as I say, very unusual. It's a very symbolic case. I think the message behind this by Greenpeace and by these farmers is that the government needs to act. The government needs to put in place laws and far-reaching measures to tackle climate change, and it needs to stick to them, that changes made by individuals are really just incremental and not enough. We've seen Germany make promises to tackle climate change, but as Lisa Goldner told me earlier today, Germany as an industrialised nation should really be leading the way on making much larger changes.
As one of the richest industrialized countries in the world, Germany has a special responsibility also to account for all the historic emissions that Germany has emitted and for the emissions that Germany has put in the atmosphere. So it's clear that the German government has to act now. And we've tried various activities to push the German government to comply with their own climate targets. So this is really the last resort that we have, to go to court, because it's the job of the courts to control the government. So we're asking the court to immediately step in and to order the German government to comply with the climate targets that they set.
So there you have it. The German government will be in the dock today. The results of this case, of course, we will have to wait and see, but it does seem to be a landmark case. And as you can hear behind me, there's a lot of support for those farmers ahead of this first hearing.
Jessica Saltz, thank you very much for the update outside the courthouse in Berlin. And of course, we'll be following that case as it develops.